Guess what happened in Chicago? They elected another progressive mayor. The last one turned out not to be progressive and just a horrible mayor. But this one, who knows? Brandon Johnson. He doesn't really have much of a track record. He was a what do you call a county commissioner, which I don't even know what those people do. That's like I'm in the party and I want a stepping stone to get into politics. And boy, was it. Boy, was it. Thank you, Steph.
Yes, yes.
Well, I want to add onto this, Jimmy, is that, with this election, I am preparing to be disappointed with Brandon Johnson being elected.
Well, hold your comments. Let me just tell people there's been a 45% increase in crime compared with the same point last year in Chicago in several categories, including sexual assault, robbery, burglary, car theft. Murders have fallen from pandemic-era rise in 2021 and 2022, but the number of murders this year is still almost 50% higher than in 2019. Instead of more police on the beat, he called for this guy who won, this Brandon Johnson guy, so he ran against the guy who's calling for more cop, going to get tough on crime, right? Because crime's exploding in Chicago, according to the statistics. But instead of more police, this is what he ran on, Kirk. Get this. He ran on not more cops, but called for economic and community development, more social workers and mental health professionals. This is what we've been saying at this show, and more detectives to actually solve the crimes that are committed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't realize I guess I just thought.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't know this.
Me neither.
I just thought cops.
As soon as he said it, I'm like, why don't they have more detectives?
Yeah, that seems like you should have more of those.
How come nobody ever mentioned this before?
That would solve the murders, right?
So what? So now they're saying, that he is the blueprint for Democratic messaging going forward because because now when crime rises, what happens is Democrats become right-wingers and they get tough on crime, right? That's Joe Biden's big thing, the crime bill. We put everybody in jail give you the death penalty for everything except jaywalking is what
I wrote the damn bill.
That's right. So now they're saying, Kit, he's going to be, so this is the big message that the Democrats, that's why this race is a big deal. Because now it signifies to the rest of the Democrats how you can run against tough on crime Republicans. Now you can say we're going to do all this stuff, which is very popular, by the way, but now it has to work, right? So, Kit, let me bring you in. Let me bring in the guy from Chicago with the Chicago perspective. He's the one who let me know about this race. Now, first of all, he won because a bunch of white liberals voted for him, right?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that because, see, the thing is, yeah, he got the support of the progressive movement and the last-minute endorsement of Senator Bernie Sanders, in which 4,000 people attended this rally. But the thing is, the difference between this election and what we saw in 2019 is this election, it was a nail-biter. Brandon Johnson only got 51% of the vote. Vallas got 49% of the vote. Additional 25 to 30,000 more people voted this election cycle than in 2019. And what happened in 2019 is Lightfoot ran in with a lot of good favors, support from the people. She got 73% of the city vote. She won with an absolute landslide and plus facing off against Tony Prettwinkle. What Brandon Johnson has to face off against is the fact that many of Paul Vallas's endorsements and all of his supporters are still out there, and this is the aftermath of Lightfoot's failed administration. Brandon Johnson will have to compromise all those great values that you brought up. He will have to compromise in order to appease the people that Paul Vallas made agreements with. In the city council, 23 city council members supported Vallas. Only 13 supported Brandon Johnson. So already right off the bat, Brandon Johnson is going to have to learn how to compromise, appease, and go with the police department. In 2020, he was all for defund the police. In this campaign,
and he backtracked on that, right?
He backtracked on it, and then he went on to say, we're going to redefine the police. And he also went on to say that the police budget will not lose one penny. So in other words...
So he's already backtracking. God damn it. So so you already saw Lori Lightfoot. She was supposed to be as progressive also, and she turned out to be horrible. She's just a bad administrator. She's a bad manager. She's a bad public relations. She's a bad leader. There's nothing good about her.
She leaves bad yelps for people for no reason.
She leaves bad yelps.
Well, the thing is with Lightfoot is I've never saw anyone be gifted so many presents of goodwill in 2019 because it was Rahm Emanuel was no longer elected into office, and this was the first time ever we witnessed a decline of a dynastic mayor. We've seen that with Daley Sr. and Daley Jr. These are two people who've been in power for 20 plus years in Chicago. It's a dynastic family. With Rahm Emanuel being kicked out, you have Lightfoot coming in. And with Lightfoot, with all this goodwill, was able to turn all of her supporters into her enemies. Thin-skinned, unable to take criticism, and under her watch, she still continued Rahm Emanuel's policies, which is unchecked corruption, police brutality, and ongoing political infighting, to which now Brandon Johnson will inherit. And there's a reason why there's a rise in crime. It's because you have large real estate developers buying property. You have schools being shut down. We can thank Rahm Emanuel for that. And also the shutdown of the mental health facilities in the city of Chicago. It's a recipe for disaster to displace people in the South and West Side neighborhoods and to continue ongoing crime. Because when you lack community resources, you're going to get an increase in crime. And of course, then there's more budget to the police department and no solutions are going to be offered to fix this ongoing problem.
So Brandon Johnson is going to, so you think he's going to restore some of those mental health services? Do you think he's going to open some more schools? I mean, what is his big plan? If he doesn't have any big plans, it's just going to get worse.
Well, what I want to say is this. Look, I want to have hope that things get better. But see, that's unfair to you and your audience. Hope in one hand, crap in the other. See which one fills up first. You are a lifelong resident of Chicago. I have been in this city for most of my life. I have seen politicians get corrupt. I've seen politicians fail. And we've seen it happen over and over again. And mayors backtracking on their promises. I'm preparing for disappointment for Brandon Johnson to once again backpedal on his compromise. Because again, this election was a nail biter. And in order for him to maintain his power, he has to compromise with the people who were supporting or hoping to have Vallas win.
Or he has to have some big, use his political capital that he has right now to push through some big reforms or some big changes. And it doesn't sound like he's going to do that. It sounds like he's going to nip around the edges, try to find money for maybe some more social workers and things like that. But it doesn't sound like he has any giant plans, right?
Well, okay, again, take this into account, too, of the economic situation in Chicago. In 2020, when the Biden-Harris administration, or at least afterwards in 2021, when the Biden-Harris administration were giving out COVID relief packages, what did Lightfoot do with it? She gave a good chunk of it to the CPD.
To the cops.
And also paying off Chicago's debts, which is technically illegal, was what she did. And so now Brandon Johnson has to inherit that as well. So he could use the TIF funds. He could go ahead and, use the TIF funds. If anything, I'd recommend this book for your audience, Chicago's Not Broke. It talks about the TIF funds. But the TIF funds have been used by the previous mayoral administrations for tourist projects and helping out their, donors and supporters who have put them into power. So he could, in theory, there are resources there for him to use if he wants to.
The thing that takes away my hope, ironically, is that the king of hope was the Barack Obama, and his Arnie Duncan, his Secretary of Education, endorsed this guy, and people like that endorsed him. And when Arnie Duncan endorses you, that is the worst thing. That's like, I'm not gonna, he's a corporatist neoliberal hack who.
Actually, Jimmy, in regards to Paul Vallas, he got the endorsement from Arnie Duncan.
No,
that wasn't Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson's endorsements range from Warren, Sanders, Ayanna Presley, Jamal Bowman, Chuy Garcia. Arnie Duncan is not.
Arnie Duncan didn't endorse him, really? Okay. Oh, thanks.
I'm looking at the endorsements. I'm seeing some people here that I have interviewed in the past, and no, on his campaign website, I do not see Arnie Duncan.
Well, maybe he wouldn't. Vallas. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't list it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay, I'm glad you're on the show then, so we didn't spread some misinformation, Kurt. God forbid.
Hashtag canceled.
Hashtag I get an endorsement wrong for a Midwestern city. Well, we're going to hope for the best, but so they're talking about, so in this article here, they're talking about, you remember in 84 they had the Democratic convention in San Francisco. So now it's going to be either Atlanta or Chicago in 2024, right?
I believe so.
And so if it's in Chicago and they coined that term San Francisco Democrat, which was like a bad label, what stuck to the Democrats right after that convention. And so they're talking about in this article about they're going to start calling it Chicago Democrats.
They weren't already doing that?
No, I guess not. But now they're going to start. I thought they were after Rahm Emanuel and Obama. But now that's what they were saying, and they were worried about that because his plan is going. Well, I don't want to say. He doesn't really even have a plan, as far as I can tell. He just has those platitudes that I want to hire more social workers instead of more cops. But when the rubber meets the road, he doesn't have the backbone to actually institute any of it. And so if you don't have the backbone to do something big, that's how you have to, when you have capital, which he has right now, you got to spend it and hope that it pays off. And sometimes it doesn't pay off and then you lose. But if you don't do anything, you're going to be guaranteed to lose again, right? And now they're going to be able to tar the whole Democratic Party with Chicago Democrats and crime, and they're soft on crime, and they have crime all over their cities, and they're the worst because all the Democrat cities have all the crime, and that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And so you got to spend. So he's not going to spend that cap. Your idea of that he's got to. Yeah, you have to learn how to make your political adversaries afraid to not get on board with you. That's called real political talent, not just like Chris Christie, who has a gift for gab. That's a real political talent, being able to put fear into your political opponents or people who are your adversaries, and make them afraid to not get on board with you. And that's what you have to do. And he doesn't seem like he's going to do that. You can't start out compromising immediately. You have to start out by fucking making people afraid of you. I'm stuck.
What he was able to do, at least I have to give him credit for this, is that after the initial runoff, Vallas got 34% of the primary vote, and Johnson got about, I believe, 21 to 23% of it. Johnson was able to reach out to a lot of supporters, had a strong ground game, and was able then to get endorsements of some higher tier Democratic lawmakers. Now, on the plus side, okay, that attracts more people to tune in and support him. But here's the thing. Ayanna Pressley, Jamal Bowman, Senator Bernie Sanders, Warren, they're not from Chicago. They're there to give him a boost. And now he's on his own to carry on with his policies and what he hopes to implement here for Chicagoans. Again, the issue is that he's going to have to work with the people who expected Vallas to win. And since because originally when the election was starting off, or last night, Vallas had the lead. It was a narrow lead, but then it started to dwindle away. If Johnson truly is incapable of really forcing through his policies, we're going to get another version of Lightfoot, but perhaps not one that is so easily triggered and having so many verbal breakdowns.
Okay, well, good luck to him. I hope he is able to give people the social services that help. It's all about economics and social services. Yeah, of course, he starts closing. The mayor starts closing down schools, and there's no economic development. And of course, and then they don't spend the money correctly. They get the COVID money, they don't give it to the people, and of course, there's going to be higher crime. So hopefully, they can do something to turn it around. Anything you want to say, Kurt?
Don't you think it would be better if he just secures his position first and then works from the inside?
So it seems to be the same old story over and over, just like with the Justice Democrats, just like AOC, just like with Lori Lightfoot. They talk a good, just like Bernie Sanders. They talk a good game, and then where the rubber meets the road, they tuck tail and run.
Where you make the voters afraid not to vote for you, as opposed to your opponents.
As opposed to your opponents. Yeah. I mean, that's how you work. People were afraid not to get on board with. That's what you have to do. But anyway, well, Kid, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck over at HardLensMedia, and we'll see you. We'll be in Chicago the second weekend of August this year, so we'll see you then.
Just two things I would like to just inform your audience. There's still lead in Chicago's drinking water. And, of course, there's always unchecked political corruption. And no one's really addressed the police brutality here in this city. Maybe this time around we could do something with Brandon Johnson. Maybe you could do something about the lead in our water. Hopefully. Maybe.
Is lead considered a vegetable now?
I think that's all you have to do is make it considered a fruit or a vegetable. I grew up drinking that water. And... so I probably would be a lot less dumb if I didn't have lead poisoning in my brain from
You don't like
Chicago.
unleaded water?
I like unleaded water. Imagine what I could have done if I didn't have a lead-tainted brain.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, he became president because he didn't grow up in Chicago drinking the lead water. He grew up in Hawaii.
Well, people get violent and stuff because they've been drinking lead.
Lead makes you violent.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, the big drop in crime. There was a big drop in crime from, say, like the 80s.
Yeah.
Like lots less murders and stuff like that. And you know why? They attribute it to they took lead out of the gas.
Yeah.
I know that.
Well, in order to get your pipes fixed, you have to pay it now out of your own pocket. The city doesn't do it for you. So maybe Brandon Johnson can fix that too. So hopefully we could do something about the water in this city. Or is it as Joe Biden once said, nothing will fundamentally change?
I mean, what about the progressive? Oh, fuck it. Really? All right, Kit. Good to talk to you. We'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thank you later.
Go to jimmydore.com to see my new stand-up special, COVID Lies Are Funny. For only $10, you get to become a premium member, too. And come see us do our live shows. We're going to be doing stand-up comedy in Milwaukee, Nashville, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, New York, Cohoes, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Baltimore, Maryland, and more. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.